Welcome to the Cathedral Park CDC. I was the secretary of the preceding organization, Cathedral Park Association, for a number of years. It went through a period of inactivity, and we restarted and formed a CDC, the Cathedral Park CDC, in November of 2013. The officers are myself, Mark Frog-Harris, president, Giles Bentley, treasurer, and Carol Sharp, advisor. None of us receive any compensation. We have a tight structure for leadership, which the Planning Commission had problems with, which caused a problem with our RCO registration. So we had to renew it with a separate but closely related organization, which is the Cathedral Park Development Association. So we have a pairing there. Our monthly meetings are on the third Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m. At this location. As you can see from our logo here, we believe very strongly in trying to restore Cathedral Park to what used to be. There are a lot of vacant lots and bad houses. We would like to see all these filled in with new housing, which is a primary objective of our organization. You probably know that most of the houses in Cathedral Park were built around 1925. This was a community of immigrants. A lot of Irish and Italians lived here. But after some time, redlining by the government occurred, which led to a lack of investment in the community, extreme difficulty, people getting loans to purchase, and after a while, people who could afford it fled the neighborhood. Thereafter, during the administration of Mayor John Street, he had the Neighborhood Transformation Initiative with the intent of rebuilding neighborhoods. It did result in a lot of vacant lots being created and a lot of old houses knocked down, which we can readily see around us, but it did not lead to the construction of much of any new housing. Cathedral Park is a neighborhood which is ready for redevelopment. When we look at the neighborhoods around us, Mill Creek to the south, West Parkside to the north, and the University City to the east, we can see that it's already happening. It's just a matter of time before it gets here. My name is Mark Frog-Harris, if you don't know me. I moved in here in 1981, but I was away quite a lot. Eventually, tiring of my job as an over-the-road truck driver, enjoying many aspects of it, but I lacked a home life, a church life, a community life. So I changed jobs and got involved in my community. I'm very committed here. Spent a fair amount of my personal funds. And I plan to die here. I think it's a good place to retire. I have no plans on leaving, and I want to make it a better place as long as I'm here. So we know redevelopment is coming. The big question is, who will direct it? Either it will be us or outsiders who are mostly driven by economics, by the way that they can make a buck the fastest, easiest way, which normally leads to gentrification neighborhoods. We've seen that happen in several communities in Philadelphia. Everybody that I've talked to in Cathedral Park is fearful of this, does not want it. The residents here do not look at their houses as investments, or rather as homes in which to live in for a long period of time. So the cost of housing, rent and taxes are very important to them, and gentrification and increased housing values are not viewed as good at all. My response to this situation where the redevelopment is coming, it's a choice of either we do it or they do it to us, is to get ready to try to direct a redevelopment here. So I finished college, I have a degree in accounting. I took a couple of nonprofit leadership courses and recently spent 2 years acquiring 2 certifications, one in economic development and one in housing finance from the National Development Corporation, realizing that in order to do something like this, without experience, one needs education. So I acquired that education. And yes, there are schools that teach you how to be a developer, which is not what I think of myself as, but technically speaking, that is what the Cathedral Park CDC is about, and as the leader, I need to be knowledgeable. Speculators are grabbing what they can. There's a number of speculators who are well-funded. They buy a large quantity of lots, have a long list here of hundreds of properties and owned by just one speculator's group, including the one down at the corner there, which you see is abandoned. They're doing nothing with, and they want to sell it for a very high price, though they spent just a couple $1,000s for it. So there's a need to build in our community. these speculators competing with us, not to build, but to grab lots. Our plan for a long time had been to acquire some lots and build on them, get some experience with this process, but this RFP has suddenly come along. So I've been investing, quote unquote, my savings in vacant lots, and to the extent that I can and need to, we'll do some more of that. But this RFP challenge suddenly came up before we were really ready for it. We haven't actually built anything yet, even though we're preparing to do so. And the plan was that we would have some experience under our belt before facing a challenge like this. 4900Girard Avenue, you're probably familiar with if you live here. It used to be a row of three-story row houses. The trolley tracks were not in good shape. There's a lot of vibration which affected them, particularly the old houses with the weak lime mortar which they are built with. So they could be said to have been shaken apart. And eventually, most of them have been knocked down. There are 4 occupied and 3 vacants on that block right now, except for the ones at the eastern end. There was an RFP a few years ago which failed. It was very high density, very inconsiderate of the community. There's now a new RFP which we need to respond to. It opened on June the 1st and closes August the 1st. The Cathedral Park CDC has voted to bid on this. There are 31 lots, 2 with vacant buildings. There are other lots which were not included. There are deficiencies with the RFP. They seem to have forgotten what blighted means. To be blighted, for a community to be blighted means that there's certain characteristics or qualities which it has or lacks, which describe it, which cumulatively justify determination that the community is blighted and in need of redevelopment, which leads to a formal vote, which did happen, which the community did agree to. Some of the deficiencies in Cathedral Park are some streets that are too narrow, there's lack of access to larger vehicles, there's limited parking, and of course there's lots of vacant lots and houses in poor condition. The Redevelopment Authority did not properly complete preparations for issuing RFP. There's demolition that needs to be done at 4945 and 4900Girard Avenue. There are vacant lots that should have been acquired, which they did not. There's a house at 4975 West Girard, which they let go to sheriff's sale recently. They should not have done so, but they did. And there's no consideration given to Stiles Street in their proposal. Our objectives are to restore a vibrant row house community, which this used to be. And that's before my time and before many people's time, but this used to be quite a thriving community. Until redlining and other factors, pulled it down. Another objective is to not gentrify the community, to, I like to say, restore as opposed to redevelop it, into a community of homeowners. Renters, it's been observed by many people, do not have typically have the interest of and concern for the community that the homeowners do. Of course, it needs to be affordable, and local and minorities should get employment out of it. It shouldn't be something that benefits bankers and out of people who live out of the community. And the houses that are built need to be appropriately sized for what people. You note there's an extension to the top right. If you look to the left of that, you'll see a bunch of not so clearly indicated, but vacant lots. These used to be houses at one time. Why can they not be houses again? Why cannot Stiles Street have a street front on both sides at the eastern end instead of just on one side? It can be done, and I think it should be done. It would. One key question, as I alluded to a minute ago, is: are we trying to achieve redevelopment or restoration? I prefer the term restoration because it means to get back to way something used to be, something that was good, as opposed to redevelopment, which oftentimes means changing for something new or different. That's not what the community particularly needs or wants. Here's an artist's concept of what both Stiles and Girard Avenue could look at on the eastern end. It's simply a row of 2-story row houses, and nothing complicated, fancy, or terribly expensive. This plot shows how houses would be arranged. You see, in order to deal with Stiles Street, the best way to work it out is to pull the curb back 10 feet on the south side to the eastern end to allow for on-street parking and also to widen the street down the middle so a fire truck could get down there. Then with the Chell-Rolosset result, rotate the houses sideways so that they're parallel to the street instead of perpendicular, and then each house would occupy 2 lots. And the same thing would be done for the matching lots on the Girard Avenue side to accommodate the greatly reduced depth of the properties and maintain a reasonable lot size. The rest of the development is simply row houses in a normal fashion as they typically are. There's also some off-street parking provided for here. You see a driveway on the east side. It runs around the north behind the existing houses and comes out on the left, on the west, at 4957 West Girard Avenue, next to 59, the last existing house. Now, the western drive would be made a little wider and stronger, the reason being to allow fire truck access to get close to Stiles Avenue. That's the best we can do to ameliorate that situation. There are a couple of adjustments I would make to this drawing, which is fairly old. This project has been around for a long time, which are to move the driveway, which you see to the right, more over to the left, and not include the alley in the driveway. There's a height difference and would be a little difficult to accommodate that, and also maybe better security for the people on Stiles Street if there was a fence maintained separating this development from the existing alley. These next 3 drawings were supplied by some unknown developer who called a meeting at the Bible Way Baptist Church several days ago. These are their drawings, untouched, unchanged. They show the plans that they have for this redevelopment. The blue lots are ones where they want to put townhomes, a total of 11 of them. You see the townhomes are basically occupying 2 lots apiece. They're described as being 22 feet wide. And we see the size here. Yeah, they're pushing 2,000 square feet, 1,785 square feet apiece. So they're fairly large 3-story homes. I'm sure they'd be very nice, but not anything the neighbors could afford. On the right in the yellow, we see depicted 60 units, which you see are in writing here described as condominiums. This is a very large, hulking structure which will be built on the eastern 2/3 of the large lot which is currently vacant on the north side Girard Avenue there. Here's a couple more perspectives which show you just how large and inappropriate this is for the community and how it would, particularly the apartments, would overshadow the houses on Stiles Street. Here's another view which shows the same. One question to be asked is, who is behind this? The presentation given there was very interesting. A lot of time was spent talking about the background and history of the builder and getting into economic factors, what would call, is called, playing the race card without saying black or white, but it was quite obvious. But very little time was spent talking about the development itself. One thing was not revealed in any way, shape, or form is who is behind this. There's obviously some money, some promoter, somebody who stands to benefit from it, who is partnered with the Clara Muhammad Mosque, who are the nonprofit partners in their proposal. So they are, could be said, being used by somebody, some unknown group, persons, other partners, was totally concealed at that meeting. But the community certainly should know and has a right to know who's behind that. As far as Cathedral Park goes, it is a local community organization without any partners. There's some problems with the proposal. One of them is obviously high density. It's not as bad as the previous proposal by Wolfsey, which had a huge number of units there. In this case, they total 71. There are some statements made by the presenters, particularly by the developer, that people could gain equity by buying into this project. How that would happen is really questionable. He spoke of people selling their homes and getting into the condominiums, and then had to mention that the funds that they received they might have to conceal or do something with without explaining why. How anybody would exchange a new condominium for an old house which needed maintenance, which was being implied, is difficult to conceive. It just makes no economic sense. The presenter then at one point mentioned the term LIHTC, which upon questioning brought forth the revelation that what is represented as being condos, both orally and in writing, as you can see, are actually apartments. So the idea that people could acquire equity is just washes out. There's no truth to it. You can't build equity owning an apartment. And the townhomes are totally unaffordable for anybody in the neighborhood. Nobody could build equity that way either. So that rationale which is being promoted sounds very nice, but there's no substance to it. The townhomes were stated as being for $150,000, $175,000. That number again doesn't make sense. Building a small home, and at this present time, would require an expenditure of that amount. To build a large townhome would take twice that amount or thereabouts. Very, very much out of the price range of people who live in Cathedral Park. So it's clear that this project isn't to benefit the community. They wouldn't live in it unless they want to pay rent. And people who are struggling to maintain a home that they already own would not likely want to move into an apartment building unless they was well subsidized, which was suggested that people would only pay 30% of their income for rent. But no, there was no indication that there was any funding or program to pay for that. Again, there's some money, something behind this, but there was no revelation. The government funds programs which support a situation like that, which subsidize rent, are competitive, and there's no indication that there was any buy-in or by the promoters of this to actually be able to do that, as opposed to wishing to do it. The proposal by Cathedral Park does have some strengths. Our financing proposal is very innovative, which is that we'll sell the houses before they're built, and then the mortgage commitment will be used to obtain construction financing. Of course, our density is much lower. What we plan to build is affordable, and we're going to do everything we can to employ locals, as well as address problems which are ignored by both the RA and the RFP and the other proposals, such as narrow streets, off-street and on-street parking, missing lots in Style Street. I didn't mention earlier that among the narrow street problems to be addressed, we wish to deal with not only the east end of the 4900 block of Style Street, but also 49th Street, which has 2 vacant lots on the west side of which are very much needed to narrow it. It's quite a problem now with people parking on the sidewalk, vehicles staying there all the time, and the tire shop on the east side. There's also an opportunity to widen St. Bernard Street on the west side, where there's a vacant lot, which you may remember from the drawing before, is not included in the RFP, but it is vacant. It could logically be used to widen that street and improve access. Cathedral Park's proposal has some weaknesses. We lack capital. We do not have money. We do not have experience as we were planning to have. We don't have partners, which could be a pro or a con, but there is potential strength in having a good partner. This unknown competition has some principles we just have no clue about. They were concealed from the public. They should not be. The density is high. The townhomes are unaffordable. They've shown no respect for Style Street, and obviously have sold out to Wall Street in order to get these tax credits, very similar to the previous proposal by Wolfsey. The effects of this on the community will obviously be to gentrify it. When large townhomes are built, it will suggest to other people that they can do the same thing, and they may want to snap up the vacant lots here and build some more, which will strongly encourage gentrification. There's also little home ownership. Only 11 out of 71 units of their proposal would be owned by anybody, so it does not lead to ownership. And there are inconsistencies. We pointed out that what was represented as condominiums that the residents might be able to obtain are actually not. They're purely apartments. There would be little ownership, as mentioned above, and the pricing is clearly unaffordable. They do have strengths. There's some money behind this. Whoever, whatever it is, has some sort of money, and also politicians were present. suggesting that they have some interest in this. Unfortunately, politicians sometimes are looking out for themselves and their friends, but we should be putting the interest of the community first, which is what Cathedral Park CDC, of course, wants to do. There are some weaknesses in their proposal. Their financing is apparently very traditional, sell tax credits and obtain government money as much as possible. They're not local at all, whoever they may be. It's certainly not for the hiring. It was going to be a union job, which means minorities and locals will have a difficult time finding employment. It's not affordable, the high density, and it's very disrespectful to the neighborhood. This is a big challenge, friends. I went to school, for a couple of years to learn how to lead this project, but by no means am I a developer or a money person. Leading out and being the key person in a $6 million project is a challenge. It's a responsibility. It gives me a little bit of a heartburn. So I definitely want your support and prayers. So, please lift me up. I want to lead our community forward. This is obviously what we need to do, but it's not an easy road to hoe, and we need to find more financing. Just in community notes before we close, our monthly meetings are on the third Tuesday at 6:30. There was a tire roundup this year, which unfortunately was poorly communicated. We were not able to participate in it. And there was a bandit sign program, which we'll repeat. So you're asked to collect the bandit signs, put them in a bag, bring them here. You can leave them on the front steps. They're worth 50 cents a piece. It's not going to make much money, but that's not really the objective. The objective is to improve our neighborhood and try to eliminate this other source of blight. Our website is cathedralparkcdc.org. Very simple. You're invited to visit it. You'll find very many resources and interesting things. So please visit that, share it with your friends, and you'll find more details about the 2 lots and 2 proposed houses which we want to sell. They're available right now. Please spread the word, share it, and keep Cathedral Park in your prayers and your thoughts. And remember to come back in a couple of weeks for a meeting. Thank you.